In today's lecture, we will discuss psychoanalysis, which is probably the most known school of psychology. And the key premise of the psychoanalysts for you is that humans are not rational. Unlike the behaviorists who said that the human mind works as a computer that just needs the right input to work as we want it to, the psychoanalysts argue that there's a lot more going on in the mind already. And the second part of this premise is that we are influenced by inputs we are not consciously aware of. So to explain this more closely to you, you can think of the mind as consisting of two parts, your aware mind and the unconscious part. And the aware mind is you as you think of yourself, so your thoughts, your feelings, and so on. But the key question of psychoanalysis is that these thoughts, a thought must come from somewhere. And the psychoanalysts say that thoughts come from the deep unconscious, which you cannot access, with your mind. Key childhood memories or repressed memories are stored there that influence your behavior, which then can make you act in ways that are not rational, or which the behaviorists wouldn't call rational. Since this is psychoanalysis, I have to speak about Freud. And Freud identified these two kind of inputs which shape your conscious mind, regardless your learning or your adult experiences. He identified the id, and another note, to think about these concepts, you have to, I suppose, feel them. It's a very difficult stuff with psychoanalysis is that most of this stuff is not objectively measurable. So when I speak about psychoanalysis, you have to look deeper inside of you than when I'm speaking, for example, about behaviorism. So Freud identified the id, which is an input to your conscious mind. It's like a little voice that wants instant satisfaction. So it's the part of you that doesn't want to work hard, that doesn't want to, that wants to have fun all the time, that doesn't want to hold the diet you've set out for yourself, and that just wants impulsive satisfaction of your needs. And that's why, for example, many people, you can't change the behavior of many people, even though you're teaching them as hard as you can. Sometimes the id force in people is so strong that they find it very difficult to be organized or not overeat and do other stuff which is related to just instant gratification. The counterpoint to the id is the superego, which develops later than the id, and which is the voice that consists of the rules set by your parents and society. So as you grow up, your parents tell you, oh, don't do this, don't do that, this is bad for you, and society, the rules of society, tell you the same thing. So the superego then is the voice of reason, I suppose, or the voice of perfection, the voice that wants you to do everything by the rules and forces the id to enforces the id in its place. It's a counterweight to it. But there's a problem. Some people can have a very strong or tyrannical, or people call it tyrannical superego, and that can lead to workaholism, for example, that you always say to yourself, or this voice is so strong that it doesn't allow you to relax, to have fun, which is associated with the id, and forces you to work all the time and doesn't allow you to have any fun. Or it prevents you from being assertive in some cases, for example, because one of the rules of society is that you should listen and you should be, you should be a good guy. And people with tyrannical superegos might find it difficult to, be assertive because it goes against the rules of the society. And then there's the ego, which you can think of as you, and you when you balance these two different inputs. So just to summarize quickly, id is the force that wants instant pleasure and makes you break your diet and seeks impulsive pleasure. And the superego is the force of rules and standards set by your family and parents and society, which, if it's too strong, can prevent you from having fun or be assertive, for example. So that's Freud's theory, very simply put. And a useful exercise is to track is to try to listen to these two voices inside of you and see which one is stronger in which situations, or where you might be falling to the impulses of the id, or where you are held back by the strict, rules set by the superego. So that's Freud. Second theory I've chosen that I think might be useful for you is a theory of another psychoanalyst, Karen Horney, and she argued that all humans have built in them the feeling of anxiety or stress of life, which they want to avoid, and we want to, as people, we want to feel safe and secure and relaxed because it's something deeply built inside of us. And people use different strategies in life, whether they know it or not, to achieve this sense of satisfaction and safety. So the first kind of strategy that Horney identified is, so they use different strategies. And the first strategy is moving towards people. So people who use this strategy, they kind of assume that others will protect them, that they have to take a submissive role in front of others because they are not competent and not strong enough to deal with life. So they seek the comfort and safety of others. So people like this usually select a dominant partner who will, who they believe will protect them. And maybe perhaps at the workplace, they might have difficulties saying no to people and not being used by others and generally not being below others when they use this strategy in a not so productive way. A second theory that was identified by Horney is moving against people, which argues that these people think that life is hard, life is tough, so they're going to take they're going to go against others before they can do it first. So a people who moves against others is very dominant, doesn't allow for much discussion, and sees his opinion as the only true one. So that may be your classical, strict, tyrannical boss who you're not very happy of or very fond of because he doesn't allow for much discussion, for example. And the last personality type or last strategy is moving away from people. And people who move away from others do so because they have concluded, according to this theory, that people and social interactions are trouble. They cause stress, they cause just pain, so they're going to move away and remove themselves from these social circles. So this might be your timid, quiet colleague that doesn't share much about himself or is shy and has maybe problems with socializing with others. And another useful exercise that you might try out is to have these strategies in mind, maybe see which strategy you might be using and in what way, and if it is productive or not, and then try to see how others manifest these strategies to help understand them and deal with them.